We at Time Shifters hope that you enjoyed this rare and infamous moment that combines a first-rate disaster with genuine historical significance. But now it's time to take a deep breath as we prepare to temporarily reset you. Get your cars to Mars.
Welcome to the Time Shifters Podcast. In this show, we discuss and review film and television, primarily in the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror genres. And we are always thrilled when we hear from our listeners, so please send an email to timeshifterspodcast@gmail.com or drop a comment on any social media post. And you can follow the link in the show notes to find all our contact information and the Time Shifters Podcast social media accounts. And you can also visit timeshifterspodcast.com. Now let's join the show, and to do this, I have my awesome co-host, Tom. Well, Happy New Year, Tom.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
It is a new year. The show is on a new theme. In case you didn't listen to the last episode, we are going to Mars this year. Get your cast to Mars.
Love that.
Looking forward to this year. We have got a slate of films that I think are going to be so much fun to talk about.
Oh, yeah. And who knew there were so many about the Red Planet? Or taking place on the Red Planet, or about the people from the Red Planet?
Yeah, quite a few. Well, maybe it's not so surprising because Mars has been a bit of a fascination for us Earthlings for a long time.
Good 1,000 years or so.
Yeah, I've got some Mars facts here that I thought would be a great way to start this series off with. Mars is, of course, the fourth planet from the Sun. It's about half the size of Earth. The surface of Mars takes on an orange-red appearance due to it being covered in an iron oxide dust. This appearance has given Mars the nickname the Red Planet. A Martian solar day is equal to about 24 and a half hours, and a Martian solar year is equal to about 687 Earth days. Mars has two natural satellites, Phobos and Deimos. While a barren world today, Mars appears to have had a watery past, with ancient river valley networks, deltas and lake beds, as well as rocks and minerals on the surface that could only have formed in liquid water. Some features suggest that Mars experienced huge floods about 3.5 billion years ago. It has a thin atmosphere made up mostly of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and argon gases. To our eyes, the sky would be hazy and red because of the suspended oxidized dust. And the temperature on Mars can be as high as 70 degrees Fahrenheit or as low as about negative 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Because the atmosphere is so thin, heat from the sun easily escapes. So if you were to stand on the surface of Mars on the equator at noon, it would feel like spring at your feet and winter at your head. Mars has no global magnetic field today, but areas of the Martian crust in the southern hemisphere are highly magnetized, indicating traces of a magnetic field from about 4 billion years ago. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was erroneously believed that there were canals on the planet Mars. They were first described by the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli in 1877 and attested to by later observers. Schiaparelli called these canali, or channels, which was mistranslated into English as canals. Around the turn of the century, the idea that these canali were really irrigation canals made by intelligent beings was first hinted at and then adopted as the only explanation by American astronomer Percival Lowell and a few others. The visible seasonal melting of Mars' polar ice caps fueled speculation that an advanced alien race indigenous to Mars built canals to transport the water to drier equatorial regions. Newspaper and magazine articles about Martian canals and Martians captured the public imagination. Lowell published his views in 3 books, Mars in 1895, Mars and its Canals in 1906, and Mars as the Abode of Life in 1908. He remained a strong proponent for the rest of his life of this idea that the canals were built for irrigation by an intelligent people. NASA's Mariner 4 was the first spacecraft to visit Mars and was launched in 1964, and it made its closest flyby in 1965. It captured the first images of another planet from deep space. Viking 1 and 2 landed on Mars in 1976 and conducted the first surface explorations. Where the Viking programs were stationary probes, only able to experiment and view the immediate surroundings from where they landed, there have been several robotic rovers sent to the planet as well. Sojourner, part of the Mars Pathfinder missions in 1997, traveled only about 100 meters before communications was lost. Spirit landed in 2004 and survived 6 years past its original mission limit. In 2010, it became stuck in loose sand after covering nearly 8 kilometers. Opportunity landed in 2004 and was a record breaker, lasting 15 years and covering over 45 kilometers before a global sandstorm blocked the sunlight it needed to recharge its batteries. After several failed attempts to communicate with it, NASA declared the mission complete in 2019. Curiosity, a small SUV-sized rover, landed in 2011 on an expected 2-year mission, but that mission has been extended indefinitely and is still in operation today. China landed the Zhurong in 2021, and it lasted almost a year, traveling nearly 2,000 meters before it was shut down to protect it from an approaching sandstorm. The heavier-than-expected buildup of dust on its solar panels prevented it from reactivating, and in 2023, the mission designer declared that the rover could be inactive forever. Perseverance landed in 2021 and is still active. While a sister rover to Curiosity, this rover included several additional scientific instruments, microphones, and a helicopter drone, Ingenuity, that successfully made over 70 flights before damage to its blades grounded it. With more robotic missions planned, as well as several organizations looking to culminate everything learned from these remote visits to the planet into a manned mission, we have only begun to scratch the rusty surface of Mars. Yeah, quick this and that's and little factoids, just some things to think about as we look into the films that we're going to be covering in the next 12 months. The rover missions have just... they've always fascinated me. I get such a kick out of seeing, and first of all, just even how they get there.
Right.
The one where they literally like hella drop it, with a rocket sled and stuff like that. The other one where they bounce it in a ball.
Yeah, it's an inflatable ball, and then it just deflates and comes out.
Yeah, it's incredible. And the fact that these things are built, they go through this, they manage to land. And yeah, we expect they'll last maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And here we are 15 years later in some cases, still plugging along.
A testament to the engineers that designed all of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff.
And as soon as I can catch the next ride out, I'll fix the drone.
Yes. That was amazing in of itself. The idea that we actually flew a helicopter drone on an alien world.
Oh, and then the high-def photos that came back as a result of all of it, too. I mean, yeah, you talk about the kind of reddish hue to the atmosphere, but you catch some of those photos, and it's not as reddish as you would think it would be.
No. I mean, and that's where you get a lot of people that still... will claim to this day that we haven't actually visited because it looks just like, Southern California or Arizona or some desert, out west. And
it's our closest neighbor in the planet closest to our topology. It's going to look a little like us in some fashions. It's not spewing ice storms and volcanoes left and right anymore. It's probably a dated version of us.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is. Maybe because of the fact, and we'll probably explore it with the films that we're going to cover and the news stories and the comics and everything. For some reason, it's always been Mars that, for the most part. I mean, yes, we get the occasional, they're visitors from Venus or from Neptune. But typically, for some reason, it's Mars. The Martians are invading.
Yes, no, I mean, straight through the 50s into the 60s, you didn't have alien movies. You had Martian movies. That was almost synonymous. If you said alien, you meant Martian, and vice versa.
And of course, one of the greatest radio programs that have ever been produced was Orson Welles' Mercury Theater when they did War of the Worlds, and they had these visitors from Mars invading Earth.
It's still, most War of the Worlds in just about all of its iterations is still a soft spot for me. All of them. They're just, it captures the imagination fully.
The radio program is still fantastic. That is not every year, but every few years I pull it out around Halloween time and give it a listen. And there are moments when you're in there and you find yourself sitting on the edge of your seat. I mean, this...
Even when you know what's about to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So well produced.
Well, and just the sheer phenomenon of the fact that they actually... They convinced the audience this was happening.
The night that panicked America sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of hyperbole, but there were people that were a little spooked.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying every city everywhere was running for the hills, but you had a lot of people convinced this was a legit radio show. Like they're reporting the news live as it's happening.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. There has just always been something about the planet Mars that has attracted us and has attracted people in media, whether it be in print or in film, to focus on that world. I'm not sure exactly what it is about it. Probably had to do with the early misconception of the canals and the idea that there might have been civilization or there could be current civilization. I imagine that probably played the biggest role in it being as ingrained in our pulp culture as it has become.
Well, you put that along with the fact, since it is our closest neighbor, it's the most observed. I mean, it's from an astronomy point of view, that's the one that has captured most people for a good long time.
Maybe because you can actually see the surface too. I mean, you can observe Venus, but what you see of Venus is clouds.
Yeah. Yes, and nothing about that is hospitable in any way. Mars captures more imagination because, again, not only because we've put stuff there, but you can put stuff there. You can go there. It's the closest thing that we have other than the moon that we might have a shot of actually walking on at some point. Like Venus and Jupiter and all those, you're not gonna get to the surface. We haven't designed the vehicle that would survive that. So, and Mercury's way too damn close to the sun.
That's why you go at night, Tom.
Oh, damn. I knew I was missing something.
Yeah, I don't know if you and I will see a manned mission to Mars. I know there is hope that it will happen in our lifetime.
Right.
I'm not entirely convinced that it will.
No, and without getting into the politics of it all, I did watch Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was on Bill Maher, and he was pointing out one very important thing. When we make big leaps, particularly in space technology, we have to be challenged by somebody else trying to do it. It has to be a geopolitical thing. Mm-hmm. Just saying you want to is not usually sufficient to do it.
Right.
There has to be a underlying threat of some kind that will
very
motivate.
much. I mean, very much. That is why the missions to the moon stopped.
Right.
In the early 70s is because we've done it. We've done it several times. Why are we still doing it?
People had done it. Yeah.
Right.
No one had done it. So, yeah,
right.
Why are we fighting? And for what? We saw it's, yeah, okay. Not a whole lot going on there.
Very expensive to do these things, and there was nobody trying to one-up us anymore.
The other point that Neil deGrasse Tyson made while he was on the show, too, which is an interesting point of view, and without using some of the language that he actually chose to use. part of the fascination with Mars is the concept that we could terraform Mars, that we could make it livable for human life. And his point was, if you had the technology to make Mars Earth-like, can't you just make Earth-like again?
Yes.
Wouldn't you use that to just heal all the horrible things we've done to our own planet? Why go set up shop somewhere else where you get slim to no chance of getting it done, at least not with our current technology? So
yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, maybe we should need to concentrate on cleaning up our own atmosphere before we go worrying about...
As he put it, if you could un-F Mars, then why wouldn't you just un-F Earth? Mm-hmm. So, excellent point.
Very much. And that actually would probably be a really great segue to jump into this week's episode.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Good Beer, Bad Movie Night, where each month we drink finely crafted brews while watching terrible films in order to see just how drunk you have to get to enjoy them. So tune in and join Troy.
Kilmore Crites.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Thank you.
Dave.
I have the weirdest boner.
And Pete.
IPAs are ales, meaning they are bottom fermented. Excuse me, they are top fermented. I f***ed that up. Try that again.
As we drag Kathleen.
Hear me.
Kicking and screaming through an alcohol-fueled podcast dedicated to movies of questionable quality and the frosty adult beverages that help make them tolerable. Good Beer, Bad Movie Night. Clearly, it's the beer's fault.
Total Recall was directed by Paul Verhoeven and stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rachel Ticotin, Sharon Stone, Michael Ironside, and Ronnie Cox. The film was inspired by the Philip K. Dick short story, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. In this film, Douglas Quaid is a construction worker that is fascinated by Mars. He has dreams and nightmares of the Red Planet. When he tries to visit a company that can implant memories of visiting Mars as a replacement for an expensive vacation, it is discovered that he has already had memories implanted and that his entire life may be a lie. Everyone around him suddenly turns against him, and it becomes a fight for his life to discover the truth about who he is and what secrets may reside in the mind of the person he once was. This may surprise you. Development on this film actually began in the mid-70s.
Really?
Producer Ronald Shusett bought the rights to the short story, and in the story, a meek clerk on Earth named Quail visits Recall Incorporated to receive a memory implant of being a secret agent on Mars. However, the process uncovers his true identity as a secret agent who previously visited Mars and whose death will bring about an alien invasion. Shusett worked with writer Dan O'Bannon, and they eventually were able to stretch the short story into a feature-length script. However, the studios considered it unfilmable, largely due to the amount of special effects and the high budget that would be necessary. The project was eventually sold to the Dino De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, where they selected David Cronenberg to direct and further develop the story. Eventually, Cronenberg, Shusett, and De Laurentiis found themselves at odds with the tone of the story. Found themselves at odds with each other over the tone of the story. Cronenberg was leaning more into a serious and dark sci-fi, where the producers wanted a fun adventure film. Cronenberg also took issue with the choice of hiring Richard Dreyfuss in the lead role.
Interesting.
Long story short, after several more casting changes and production delays, Arnold Schwarzenegger heard about the project and convinced the owners of Carolco Pictures, Andrew Vajna and Mario Kastner, whom he worked with during filming Red Heat, to purchase the rights, which they did for $3 million. Schwarzenegger had a great deal of control over the project, and it was he who hired Paul Verhoeven to direct. Verhoeven took the 30-some script outlines that had been created, highlighting the story elements that he wanted to keep and handing them over to screenwriter Gary Goldman to distill it all into one. All this paid off as the film's budget came in somewhere around $80 million. The box office at time of release was over $250 million.
Wow.
I found it so interesting that this film was in production for 15 some odd years before it was released.
That's amazing, yeah.
The casting and the look and feel of this film and the different people that got their hands on it and tried to do this and that, and Richard Dreyfuss, and there was a whole laundry list of actors that you'd recognize that were kind of like pegged to either to direct or to star or whatever. It just kept changing, and this is one of those. It's amazing the film got made.
Right.
I think if not for the fact that it was kind of fell on Arnold Schwarzenegger's radar, and the fact that he was like at his height.
Right. Yeah. No. This is that moment.
If it weren't for that, I wonder if this film would have ever gotten made.
And thank God it did, because this continues to be just one of those. It's on. I'm probably gonna just let it run.
I've not watched this thing in years.
Really?
Oh, it's been forever. Not for any reason. It just wasn't one that I've rewatched a whole heck of a lot. Honestly, the last time I watched this one, it might have been on a VHS.
No, this is one. Well, I don't consciously go out of my way to see it, but if I find it's on something, I stop and take it in, because I just enjoy this one so much. I can almost have it on a loop in my head.
Well, I think that might be one of the reasons why it hasn't been high on my list to rewatch it, is because it was so memorable from the first time I saw it.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much of this film that I remember. I know. I have the scenes in my head. I remember the fight scenes. I remember the Sharon Stone. I remember the mutants on Mars. It was all in my head, and I've not watched this thing in 20 years.
I mean, it's so in your head. It inspired our tagline for this. But no, everything about this one is just always so much fun for me. And for the longest time, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong. Who played Johnny Cab?
That's Robert Picardo.
That's what I thought. Watching it again this time, he would have been so young, so much younger at the time, even though he's just about up to joining like Voyager and all of that. They had him. If there was any of him at all in that puppet, it was so thick that.
No, I don't think he was actually there. I think he provided the voice for it, and it was just all an animatronic. But it was obviously designed to look somewhat like him.
Yeah, no, and that was the part that was just throwing me on this watch again. That I'm like, I know that looks like him, but there's just a little bit wrong, and I keep wondering, did they actually make up him, or did they prosthetic the whole thing? So,
yes, no, I think that was all an animatronic, but yes, it was definitely designed to look like him, and his voice was very much right there, and my whole family sat and watched it, and after the film was over, the credits were rolling, and he's like at the very bottom of the credit list, and my wife is like, that was Robert Picardo. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah, no, I enjoy his appearance in that and everything to do with the Johnny Cab, because this is it's a spectacle movie. I mean, everything about this is about the effects, the action, and all that, despite the fact there's also actually a decent underlying story. But one of the things, and the reason I bring up Johnny Cab right away, aside from I just enjoy that sequence so much with the Johnny Cab, but to this day, every time I see him after he's running from everything and he's about to learn a little bit more about him actually being a double agent of sorts, he gets out. He had to manually drive the Johnny cab, and the thing takes off and it runs into the wall and it explodes. And I'm like, that's an electric car. Like, why did it explode exactly?
Yeah, I think my son at one point pointed out that, like, during some of the gunfights, is like, these are really explosive rounds.
Yes,
and then the cab was like, everything's really explosive on Mars. I'm like, and I pointed out, I was like, yeah, you'd think that'd be in an electric car. And he's like, well, those batteries.
Not that we're getting into the reviews by any stretch, but while I was reading multiple reviews, there was at least one of them was picking heavily on the funny how all the advancements that we make, the machine gun's still the best method of killing things, and then you would think you'd ban them outright on Mars. Just because you got that dome there, why would you even risk this in the slightest?
Yes. Yeah, that was a very good question. But I'm kind of glad that they didn't try to do the laser beams.
No, that's fair, and I don't know what you would have done otherwise anyway. I get it. The gun's making lots of noise and breaking things and tearing people up. It's kind of hard not to cinematically want to do that. But this is a movie where, and this was another thing that particular critic picked on, was the whole notion. It follows the old trope that all the bad guys can't hit anything and the good guys hit everything.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
No, it is a perfect example of the late 80s, early 90s action film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
It just so happens it has this sci-fi edge of being placed on Mars.
Yes, but I really enjoy that element. I love even the notion that somehow we could get to a day where you would actually go on vacation to the neighboring planets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is set in the 2080s.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, only another 60 years and we'll have apparently conquered the solar system.
Sure, of course. It's bound to happen.
Mars is boring. Why not Saturn? Saturn's pretty.
I love that everyone's notion that Saturn's pretty just because of the rings.
It's got rings. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, otherwise it's a gas giant too.
Yeah. I can definitely see where they get, where the short story would spark some imagination. And
have you actually read the short story?
I have not read the short story. It was just the
either.
synopsis that the synopsis that was given in the beginning of the show here. It was the most I've read. I might try the short story. I have tried reading some Philip Dick stuff. I read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which inspired Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. I find him a little hard to get into.
It's a little on the surreal side.
Maybe it's a little surreal, or I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. It was a while ago since I've read it. I'd be curious to try to read some of his short stories. I might be able to find them a little bit more palatable than an actual full novel.
I keep meaning to pick up some Philip K. Dick and take some of that in now. A little more now, because I actually kind of feel you have to have a little more in you, a little more time in you, because everything about his stuff is almost entirely about time and how the mind sees time.
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, his mind had been altered a bit.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
I love in this film that it isn't so much that he's been brainwashed, but actually replaced. The person he was is effectively been erased.
Yeah.
And this Quaid is now a completely different entity. It's not They didn't tweak personality or anything like that. He is truly a different person. And I think that's about the only way this really works, or else you'd always have that. Someone would want to try to write in that that moment where he's not sure who he is, and he'd be thinking this way and wanting to do this other thing. And I like the fact that it was just like, no, this is a blanket. We wiped you clean, and this is this new personality.
Here's what I love about this film and why I can revisit it so much and will probably enjoy it forever. To this day, even having just watched it 2 days ago, did it happen?
Yes.
There's enough in this that there's the story they want you to follow, that Quaid is a personality laid over the top of somebody else's personality that has just latched on so hard that's now who he is. But you have to start to ask, why would Cohaagen do this? Like, that was the part the movie never really fully got around to, is what was the I know they were trying to keep his alter ego, I've forgotten it already, not Quaid, Hauser.
Hauser, yes, thank you.
If Hauser was the original, I know Hauser learned stuff that apparently the rebels on Mars wanted to know. So I get the point of trying to keep that from them. But they sent him to Earth. Couldn't a Hauser just gone to Earth? Did it have to be a full white? Did it have to be Quaid?
Well, no, the whole idea, they were playing some sort of long game.
Sure.
Where they wiped Hauser, they created Quaid, and then somehow
they wanted Hauser to get in good with the rebels so that
exactly
they could find Quado. I get all of that, but this seems like a really convoluted way to get there.
No, absolutely, and it could have easily not worked.
And the part that is so effective in this film, to this day, is the few minutes that you have before he sits down in the recall chair for the first time. And even when they give him the drug and they're going through everything, because you hear all the little things going on in the background. They're not so sly about it. They're putting it out there. But the whole notion that the guy in the background, he's pulling the programs together, and he's like, Blue Sky on Mars, that's a new one. And that's where we get to at the end of the film. Throwing in the alien stuff. Well, there was alien stuff. Like, they lay out the rest of the movie right there before they even put him under. And just because they say, oh, it stopped. Well, no, he's conscious at this stage still, so maybe they did get the implant in, and this is his recall vacation.
And it continues midway through the film when the one doctor visits him and tells him, I've been implanted to talk you out of it. You've had an embolism, and you need to take this pill to go to sleep, and then we'll be able to pull you out. And if you don't, and he lifts off this litany of things that's going to happen, and those are the things that happen.
Right. And the only thing he has to go off of, granted, the sweat bead is, okay, sure, he's lying. That's why he blows him away in that moment. But isn't that just part of the secret agent profile that they've set in his head, and the fact that we get all the way up to the end and we're with the girl that he picked on his way in. There's enough meat there to go, none of it happened.
Yeah, the fact that we actually see the girl, Marina, what was her name? Melina.
Yeah.
We see her image at recall.
Right.
It's not a girl that looks like her.
Right.
It's her.
It's her. So, they're like right out of the gate. They give you the rest of the movie, and you still buy in that we're riding this ride with him because it's real. but is it? And that's what I love about this film.
I wonder, I have not. Have you seen the remake?
I have, but it has been so long I have forgotten, and it has almost no connection to this one.
Okay. I was curious about that because I was thinking if this film were made today, and this may not hold water since they actually did make this film today, I do feel like they would have leaned into the idea that this was all in his head. This would be a little bit like the ending of, what was the film we watched? Repo Man, where it turned out that the last half of the film was an implanted memory.
Oh, yeah.
Spoilers.
Completely.
Spoilers if anyone hasn't seen Repo Man. So I feel like they would have played with that more if this film were made today. And I don't know if they did that in the remake at all.
What's funny, too, is it's been so long that I forget that the Total Recall that was remade, I don't think it actually takes place on Mars.
What, really?
I actually don't think that it does.
Interesting.
I could be wrong. I may need to check that out. And there are Easter eggs in this that allude to the Schwarzenegger movie, but we'll have to revisit this one at some point, but we might not have to fit it into the Mars.
Okay, yeah, no worries. One of the memories I have, the strongest memories I have of this film is actually the trailer.
Really?
And the thing about it, there's a moment in the trailer that I feel like whoever edited that trailer together should be fired and never hired again, because it gave up what I think would have been the biggest line for 1990. It would have been the line that everyone quoted, that everyone would use and find excuses to use and interject in their conversation and everything. In the film, it's the moment that where his wife, quote unquote, right after he has killed the doctor who is trying to supposedly save him, and the wife once again, turns out she's secret agent, double cross, and tries to beat him up. And, he's got Sharon Stone at gunpoint. She's like, "You wouldn't do that. We're married." Shoots her in the head, and he says, "Consider that a divorce." They put that line in the trailer.
I didn't actually realize that.
And I'm thinking if they had left that line in the film, the theater would have absolutely exploded at that moment. That would have been the line that came out of that movie, and people would have been using it all over all the time.
I see your point, but I can also see from like a marketing standpoint that is just so good. It's a way to get your butt in the seat too. So the same thing that makes you want to make it a moment when you're in the theater is the same reason they put it on the advertising in the first place. That's definitely this movie's "I'll be back."
Yes.
No, I get your point entirely, but I mean, I still find it fun whether or not it was in the trailer or not.
Oh no, it's absolutely fun. It is. It's just I could have seen people all through 1990 and 1991,
Yeah, well, you didn't want to start encouraging people to get divorced that way.
No, but I could have definitely seen people injecting it into the conversation, whether it meant the same thing or not, just to use that line.
Hey, you know what? All things old are new again. Maybe we can resurrect it. Hey, if kids can be into digital cameras right now instead of their phones, why not this line?
Oh, are they? Okay.
They actually
News to
are.
me.
That's a thing. You're old and crotchety, I understand.
Yeah, I'm not in with. I don't have the Riz.
You're not a hep cat like me.
The cast on this film is amazing. Of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Ironside at his prime.
Yes.
is brilliant as the villain, the heavy in this film.
Actually, and the fact that he's the second, he's the right hand man of Ronnie Cox's Cohagen, who is amazing.
Yes,
as Cohagen. That man is just fantastic at being kind of together, but when he gets angry, I think everybody in the audience can get a little sit back, sit up straight, listen, because Cohagen's speaking.
Oh, you're talking about Ronnie Cox?
Ronnie Cox, yes. But
yeah.
But that's what I mean. You're making the point. Michael Ironside's Richter in this is such a good baddie. But the fact that he is such a good baddie and he's still the second. He's the second baddie. And then watching Cohagen put him in his place from time to time is just amazing.
Oh, very much.
I don't pay you to think.
To the point when you see those moments when Cohagen's got Richter on the carpet and he's tearing him down, and you're thinking, this film's going to end with Richter turning on Cohagen or something.
Right.
It's that kind of dynamic between the two.
Especially,
but no, Richter plays the puppy dog to Cohagen through the entire film.
And part of the genius of this, and the thing that you can't believe how many people keep beating him down over it, is Lori, the wife of Quaid, the fake wife of Quaid, is actually Richter's wife, and her job is to sleep with Quaid on the regular. And the amount of people that give him so much shit about that is just absolutely amazing, including his little second-hand guy.
Oh, I'm sure she hated every minute of it.
Right. That's a line that actually sticks with you for a while, too.
A fantastic little bit of casting throughout the entire film. I can't imagine anybody else doing it and pulling it off. Could you replace Schwarzenegger with somebody else? He's actually probably the one that I think you could have replaced the easiest, but you wouldn't have had that name recognition. You wouldn't have had that name on the poster that would have really drawn people into the film.
No, and I got to give some kudos to at least what they were trying to do. Okay, if he's the Hauser badass, the fact that when they make him Quaid, he's a construction worker working heavy gear. So, I mean, there's some explanation to why he's still kind of ripped to all hell and all that. And you see that he, even while they're in their home, he tends to lean a little toward the health nut kind of side as you watch him prep his shake, his like protein shake for the day and all that. And like, okay, well, yeah, this gives a reason for him to look like he looks.
Well, they actually go to the effort of giving you the impression that maybe them as a couple, look to stay fit. She's doing tennis lessons and that sort of thing. They're all eating healthy and making shakes and things like that. So, yeah, they're just like a normal couple that's really into fitness.
Right.
It works.
Which leads well to the eventual fight scene that you get between the two of them, which was actually pretty intense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely get the feeling there's no point that you think, yeah, she shouldn't be able to take him.
I don't know why I remember this to this day. I actually love that not only do they have a very physical fight scene where she holds her own pretty well up against a big dude like Schwarzenegger, despite the choreography, obviously. But after they're done and she's stalling for time and they're both just kind of sweaty and talking to each other, and now they're kind of normal with each other again, it was... there was something... it was almost like they were a couple again, and it was kind of cool. Almost like, you two are going to have sex again, like right now, aren't you? and then she alludes to it. Like they're going to, this is going to happen too, because this is how I'm going to keep you from staring at the camera. But either way, everything about that just worked. It was so much fun.
Yeah, the whole film, it is a ride.
It is.
It's a really fun ride. Like I said, the whole family sat down and watched it. A 20-year-old son who had never seen it before sat down and watched it. He enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And that says something about a film that is now a lot older than I'd care to believe.
34.
What's that?
34.
34 years old now, and it can still entertain the modern audience. The effects are not that bad. They have not dated all that poorly.
No, I mean, other than some of the computer stuff and all, other than that, yeah, they built in as much a practical effect as they could, especially in any of the body horror with some of the stuff that they did.
Right. The only thing that doesn't stand up, and I don't know if you can really truly knock the film for it because it's not doing anything that dozens of other films haven't done, as we will find out as we go through this year, is the science. Science schmience. Yeah. None of the science holds up whatsoever in this film.
No, not at all. But hey, it makes for entertaining viewing. I was reading up on stuff related to their ever-expanding faces whenever they're outside in the low atmosphere of and when that wouldn't even happen if you were in space. It's sure as heck's not going to happen when you're on the surface of Mars. You're going to die. You're gonna basically you're gonna lose breath. You won't be able to breathe at all. Mm-hmm. But your eyes are not going to bug out of your head, and your face isn't going to expand to twice the size, and your head isn't ultimately going to explode. But hey, it's fun to watch.
Well, I mean, this film does the fantastic sci-fi trope of decompression is a really strong wind that you can hold on to something and survive. Yeah.
Well, and again, they're discounting the fact that there is some atmosphere there. It wouldn't just go kind of like you didn't blow out the side of the window out in deep space. It wasn't going to be ever that dramatic.
I also questioned, and after reading some of the factoids about Mars and the fact that it doesn't have a molten core, it doesn't have an electromagnetic field, and all the things that would protect an atmosphere. Great, this alien device has given it a breathable atmosphere, but for how long? Does this device work for extended periods of time? Is it going to keep pumping out, this oxygen or this atmosphere for everyone to breathe? And then what happens when the core of the planet finally expires? It's completely melted.
You're not following the Alien movie logic. If there's a glacier inside of Mars big enough to supply it with a breathable atmosphere, then the device that has heated that to release it will reignite the core and cause it to create a magnetic envelope again to protect it. It becomes mini Earth 2.
Oh, of course.
How did you miss that?
I completely forgot that element. I'm sitting there thinking like, well, great, they have a breathable atmosphere until the first solar storm comes sweeping by.
Yeah, it just blows it right off the planet. Yeah, no. Kind of the way it disappeared the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not supposed to question these things. Kind of like you're not supposed to question how when he's in his old lady disguise.
Yeah, the head. First of all, where did that come from?
Well, actually, no, I caught something this time that I didn't notice in any other viewing. When he gets that case and he takes all the stuff out of that yellow thing that he wears is inside the case.
Oh, is it? Interesting.
It is, yeah. You can see him pull part of it out, and it's just draped over the side at one point. I'm like, wow, I never caught that before.
I missed it.
But yeah, the whole notion that okay, you've got this mask thing that you're wearing, but when he opens it up, and that whole rod comes out the side of his head.
Yeah, where did that come
I'm
from?
like, well, where was your head inside of it? And then it lifts straight up, and I'm like, so you're wearing an extra spine too? Like, you're not supposed to care about these things, and you don't because it's so much fun watching this stuff. But yeah, if you start picking on it, there's lots of loose threads to pull.
Oh, no, absolutely. But it doesn't stop it from being a hell of a fun ride, and it is still a really enjoyable and fun film to watch. It's a great action film. It's just a good, depending on what your mood is. Do you want an action film? This is fine. Do you just want something stupid and mindless to have on in the background? Yeah, this would work for that too. If you want to have a little bit of a political espionage kind of thriller thing, you know what? There's a little bit of that in this too.
Well, yeah, and if you want kind of that trippy mind bender kind of thing, that's fully here as well. We could have a debate all day long whether or not this movie actually happened.
Yeah. Do you lean on one side or the other, or does it kind of flip flop a little?
That's the beauty of this. It sits right on that fulcrum. It balances between the two. I could go either way, just depending on which way the atmosphere blows away.
I have to admit, mainly because you see Melina's image before he goes under.
Mm-hmm. That this didn't happen.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the camp that somewhere Arnold Schwarzenegger's body is still strapped in that chair.
I have an extra fond memory of this film because I did see this in the theater when it came out. And there's a mutual friend of ours that we watched it with, and she kept leaning into me every 5 minutes during this film and go, "What's going on?" And I had to keep going back to her and going, "You're watching the same movie I am." Like, let's get to the end and we'll talk.
I think it would be hilarious to do a sequel to this where we got Arnold Schwarzenegger waking up, in the chair. Well, I hope you enjoyed your your vacation or whatever,
right.
And him not believing that it didn't actually happen, and then traveling to Mars and finding out that Mars isn't anything like his memory or whatever. Make it a little bit of a almost Last Action Hero sort of comedy.
You could kind of make a dark, twisted kind of version of it now with Arnold Schwarzenegger now.
Yes.
And make it kind of one, because recall was in his head. You could tie it in with other diseases like Alzheimer's and start really kind of screwing with him as to whether or not his life is actually anything what he remembers.
No, I love the idea of revisiting this, but either one way or another, either make it a Last Action Hero type film, or like you said, have it with here he's just totally confused and doesn't know what's real, and that would be interesting too. I mean, really make it a dramatic film.
Yeah, you could have a lot of fun with this still, and you could have a lot of fun with it with some of the actors still with us.
Yeah.
Imagine having Sharon Stone again show up.
Why not? Sharon Stone, I mean, she's obviously Michael Ironside, unfortunately, we've lost, I believe. Ronnie Cox, I think. Ronnie Cox is still with us, but he's well in his mid-80s, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to pull him into a film. But you can make him have some sort of appearance. He doesn't have to be an action star, but he could definitely be, do a scene. Sharon Stone obviously is with us. Rachel is still with us. For the most side, the cast is all with us, and you could make it work.
Yeah, no. I'm already picturing this idea that we go with
Oh, Ironside is still with us.
But I like the idea that you go with the idea that none of it happened, and you start your story off with Quaid and Laurie still together in their golden years, and then stuff happens as a result of his memories from Recall. I don't have the story from there because I'm not a writer, but I got the concepts of a plan here.
Yeah. No, so everyone that needs to be a player is still with us. I misspoke when I said Michael Ironside wasn't with us. He is still with us.
There you go.
Thank goodness. I don't think last time I saw him, he wasn't looking much like Michael Ironside that I remember, knew and loved. But
Age comes for us all.
unfortunately. No, absolutely fun ride. I think a fantastic way to start this series off. It was the perfect film.
Yes, no. I mean, it's where we get the tagline. It's just, it really does kind of, it does a fun job at even just showing off Mars too. Some of their landscape imagery that they included was amazing. Actually trying to think out what would life be like on Mars, even with some of the junk science they were throwing around, but the notion that they actually burrowed into the sides of the hills, made these domes and all that. It was a lot of fun, and it's kind of like, yeah, I could get on board with Mars if that was all really there.
Right. Very interesting. It was an interesting take on the planet, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the other takes that we get as we go through our films this year.
Absolutely.
What kind of reviews did you come up with for 1990's Total Recall?
This was an interesting collection of stuff, obviously easy enough to find reviews for 1990 films. And go figure, Roger Ebert is one of my favorites, Chicago Sun-Times. We'll start off with him. He writes, there may be people who overlook the Arnold Schwarzenegger performance in Total Recall, who think he isn't really acting. But the performance is one of the reasons the movie works so well. He isn't a Superman this time, although he fights like one. He's a confused and frightened innocent, a man betrayed by the structure of reality itself. And in his vulnerability, he opens the way for Total Recall to be more than simply an action, violence, and special effects extravaganza. There is a lot of action and violence in the movie, and almost every shot seems to embody some sort of special effect. This is one of the most complex and visually interesting science fiction movies in a long time. He really liked this one.
Very much, and I'm almost sorry I did not read that review beforehand or mention it when we were talking about it, but that is some very good points, is that Schwarzenegger is not the end-all, be-all, nothing can harm me sort of action hero in this one. He is very human, and yes, he can certainly get his way out of any tight situation, but he does do a great job at being that the confused, I don't know what the hell's going on person from scene to scene.
And in a lot of his movies that would have been prior to this one, while he might be quote unquote the star, his presence wasn't so much he was supposed to be there as a physical form. You get your Terminators, your Predators, and all of that. While, yeah, he's the star, he didn't have to do a whole lot of acting. He just had to be. And
right.
This actually required he actually get into the character and pull it off, and he is straight up the star of this film. Everything hinges on his performance. So
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent points. Unfortunately, not a lot of other people felt that way. One of the better ones after that was from Variety. A staff writer wrote, the fierce and unrelenting pace, accompanied by a tongue-in-cheek strain of humor in the roughhouse screenplay, keeps the film moving like a juggernaut. So they're really tied into the action of this and not catching the underlying story as much. And then the most fascinating thing I found, 2 movie reviews, same date, same newspaper, different writers.
Oh, interesting.
And way different perspectives. So the first one, Dezen Howe of Washington Post wrote, actually, any fun you might encounter in Recall can be traced most often to director Verhoeven's, however you say that, who injects some of his RoboCop camp into this mega dumb project. And this, if you read the rest of it, he actually likes this film, but he still thinks it's kind of childish.
All right.
And then the one that ripped into this hard, and on Metacritic, this was a flat-out 0.
Wow.
Yeah. Also from the Washington Post, from the same day, Rita Kempley, a gratuitous explosion of vainglory and guts. The movie is all firecrackers and giblets and broken glass. The overall effect is like wading through hospital waste. Verhoeven, who also directed the maliciously stylistic RoboCop, disappoints with this appalling onslaught of blood and boredom. To a large degree, he's abandoned cynicism and ingenuity for macho burlesque and thick-headed misogyny.
Wow.
Yeah!
All right. Well, interesting points.
She
An
didn't like
interesting
it.
take on it. No, she didn't care for it.
She was really hard. Actually, I had to cut a good hunk of what I even read because I was able to read the full article. This wasn't behind a paywall.
Yeah.
And the full article, she does some really kind of labored rewrites of Arnold speaking roles with his accent, and it comes off really ugly. Like she's picking on him too much. I don't know. Her review was bizarre at best, but that was the worst of the bunch. Most people either thought it was just silly fun, but I really liked Roger's take on this.
No, I agree. Very interesting.
Yep.
All right, thanks for digging those up.
Absolutely.
Next time, we're going to jump back a little bit. We're going to go back to 1964 to a film that neither Tom or I have seen, surprisingly in my case.
Right, yeah, no, this is like right up your alley.
We're going to watch Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
And you know, you always worry about this, but I kind of get a kick out of these ones that it wouldn't have come under, it wouldn't have hit my radar unless you brought it to me. And I always kind of love the little adventure. It's like, okay, this is not a thing I wouldn't have necessarily sought out. So this will be fun.
Excellent. Cool. Well, until then, I guess we should just thank everyone for listening to the Time Shifters podcast. If you have any feedback, comments, or thoughts on anything we discussed on this show, please send us an email or comment on any of our social media posts. Follow the link in the show notes or visit timeshifterspodcast.com. We will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.